Okay, you ready?
I'm ready when y'all are.
You're on.
Okay. All righty. Well, we're going to be talking today about hoarding. And I didn't know a lot about it, although I did an intervention on a woman many years ago. She lived in a fabulous house, almost a mansion. And her family put together an intervention. And when we got there, there was a little trail that to go through this house. There was stacks all on both sides of books and magazines. There were Easter decorations, Christmas decorations, Halloween, nothing ever taken down. I had never seen anything quite like that. I was just amazed. And that was really the only symptom that she had. And her family, like I said, did an intervention on her, and she actually came to Shades. And so she taught us a lot. And in doing some research about doing this talk today, I was surprised about several things. But one of the things that I wasn't surprised, but I was surprised about this, is that hoarding, or the need or the feeling to the need to hoard, starts at about between the ages of 11 to 15 and goes up to about 20. There are exceptions. There are adults that will start, hoarding in their adult life, but by and large, it starts in those preteen years, and then gets worse through their life. And so it's really called a hoarding disorder. And it's in the diagnostic tool that we use. It is listed there, and it usually coincides with some other mental issues, usually depression, anxiety, and many times alcoholism, eating disorders, which I was really, I knew all that. And so research has shown that majority of people who start hoarding have had some form of trauma in their early life, sexual abuse, emotional, physical abuse, being bullied as a kid. There's some form of trauma that drives the hoarding. And hoarding is absolutely not being willing to give up anything. It is like a grabber person. You bring something in here and hold on tight, hoping that it will change the way you feel. And they get totally obsessed with their things, their pieces of paper. It doesn't have to even have any value to it at all. It can be cardboard boxes. It can be cardboard boxes filled with old newspapers and magazines. It's not the content that for most hoarders, it is just the fact that they cannot get rid of anything. They hold on tight to it. And then a lot of them, like I said, will have, other disorders, depression, anxiety, ADHD, and addictions are pretty common, alcoholism, eating disorders. And the sad thing, only about 5% ever receive any help. And what the families usually want to do is families help. I don't care what the situation, families want to help. But what the families usually want to do is clean up the mess, get rid of the clutter. And as fast as the family takes it out, they'll put something back in. And so that is of the problem. That is not the problem. So just cleaning up the mess, cleaning up, and hauling off all of the stuff that they have hoarded or that is crowding up the house will not do any good. I mean, it will get it cleaned up for a short while. But like I said, it's like drinking the drug alcohol is actually some of the problem. And the problem is the underlying causes and conditions. It's about the brain chemistry. It's about what's driving the addiction. And so this is so true with hoarding. And so
Houston, we lost her.
She's muted.
I know, I'm working on it.
There we go.
we got it.
There we go.
You hear me?
Yeah,
All
now
right.
we can.
Okay. So I still think it's sad that only about 5% of hoarders ever receive help. Their families get, just appalled and disgusted with the mess. And like I said, they attempt to clean up. That's what the families think, and know to do. They just want to clear out everything and let them start over. And that does not work, because an alcoholic can quit drinking for a little while because the family would like for them to, or an eating disorder person, we can stop for a while to appease someone. But basically, there is you must treat the underlying core issues. And like I said, research has shown that most hoarders have had some form of childhood abuse, particularly sexual abuse or physical abuse, emotional bullying. And so one of the things that I was going to give you some things that can help treat hoarding. One thing is get to the core of it, and and that takes some good therapy. It takes therapists, and it takes a therapist that is really trained in working with hoarders. And when they get to the point of actually starting cleaning out some of the debris or some of the what they have in the house, it's recommended and very important that the therapist goes with them, because each thing that they have there has some meaning to them. It has some meaning, and they can tell you the history of just about everything that they have, and it may have no meaning for anyone else. So it's recommended that a therapist goes with them, and also a professional organizer, to when you get them to the point that they're ready to, you can't even do that at first, but you do start with a good therapist, and start with someone that does inner child work, kind of the type of work that we do here, and reading some research on it, the 4-day would be perfect, absolutely perfect for a hoarder, to take them back to their childhood and kind of look at that history to see what happened when they started holding close to whatever material thing that they had, like I said, whether it had any value or not. And so, number one, have a good therapist, but make sure they understand the process, the addiction or the hoarding disorder. And all through this research, I was really impressed that they kept saying that alcoholism treatment would apply. This is what they recommend the most, is the same thing with treating any addict as you would a hoarder through the 12 steps and a good addiction treatment. And so began to look at the history. And then by bringing in someone, like an organizer, the second thing is to for the professional organizer to actually start training and teaching the person how to organize. A lot of hoarders do not know how to organize. They just stack up stuff, stack it. And, they don't know what to do with it. They don't know how to have order in anything. So this is where a professional organizer would come in. And they're looking at, hopefully at some point, insurance paying for this along with some therapy, but that remains to be seen. And then a lot of these folks do not have decision-making skills. And so that's one thing that's real important, is for the therapist to start working with them on making decisions, because they can take one, old magazine or one book or one box of something and hold on to that and could not make a decision what to do with it, And when they can't make a decision what to do with it, well, they keep it. And it's about holding it close. So a lot of them don't really know about decision making. So that's something that a good therapist and also a good sponsor can help them learn how to develop some good decision-making skills. And then, like I said earlier, when you start the decluttering, that's down the line. You don't start with the decluttering. You start with, sessions and, getting to the core issues. But when you do start the decluttering, it is very, very essential to get a therapist involved in the actual decluttering, the decision making, and then with a trained organizer. And then they need to be taught relaxation techniques, relaxation skills. Most hoarders are bound real tight and they just hold themselves real tight and they hold their possessions real tight. And so it's important that they be taught some relaxation skills. And I don't know, it's kind of on the line of course, they're not, it's kind of on the same line. It's the opposite of being a neat freak, obsessed with keeping the house so neat and clean. It's the opposite of that. It is so important for them to have their stuff. They're bound to their stuff. So relaxation can be very helpful because when they can't do that because they have to be taught how to do that. There again, that relaxation. Many of your survivors, sexual abuse survivors, that's the last thing they can do is relax. That's the last thing they can do to relax their bodies because they have held themselves so tight and so close for so many years. And so they have to have a lot of help of being, starting to trust someone that they can let go with. And so number 6 is really important to not only do individual therapy, but family therapy, to educate the family, because like what I said, the family wants to just get in there with a U-Haul trailer, back up to that house, that garage, whatever, and pile that stuff up and haul it off. And, not faulting family members, they think that would be the solution. But by the time they got back from the dump yard, a hoarder will have already replaced a lot of the stuff. They cannot not do it. It's just like an eating disorder person. When we're into an eating disorder, we cannot not do it. We have to do it, or we have to drink, or we have to, use sex, whatever our addiction is. So just cleaning it out. I hate to tell family members you're wasting your time until you help your loved one get some really, really good therapy that goes back to the childhood. So attend family therapy, and then group therapy. I was interested because this is our belief in treating addictions. We don't believe in a lot of individual therapy, because of our license in the state of Texas. We're required to do some each week, some individual, but the power is in the group. The power is in the group. A client can get with a therapist one-on-one, and I'm not putting down individual therapy. If they, a lot of times that's the beginning of any kind of process, is individual therapy to kind of get your story straight. But this type of work, it really does better in a group setting, and because like I said, the power is in the group, and especially if you have an inexperienced therapist, an addict of any sort can absolutely run miles around and over and under an inexperienced therapist. They can do that. And so this takes some skilled therapists to work with hoarders. And then, along in the treatment process, this is not a one and done, and it's not a quick process like it is with any addiction. There's got to be maintenance. There's got to be, and I don't really like maintenance. I don't like the word maintenance because, we used to have a big tree, huge tree in the center of Shades, and it fell one day. And so what happened was, it started maintaining. It started, it stopped growing. The root system stopped growing, and it started maintaining. It started staying the same until one day it fell. And that's why I don't really like the word maintaining. I like more of the growth, So this treating a hoarder or any addict is about continue on. And in large cities, I would suspect that there's 12-step meetings for hoarders. And I'm sure you can find 12-step meetings online or on Zoom. But it's really about, when you start with a therapist that understands treating hoarding, stay with them and periodically have those consultations, and the therapist will come to the home, because like most addicts, hoarders don't always tell the truth. When we're in the disease or we're trying to hide something about our disease, we don't always tell the truth, especially to therapists. We'll go pay good money to see them and then lie by omission. We'll leave out certain things. Well, they didn't need to know that, So it's about getting honest, with the therapist, and continue to do it. And it's really recommended it for pretty much a lifetime, not to have to see a therapist for a lifetime, but, like periodic, a month, every 3 months, because instantly that brain can get back into, the brain remembers the sense of ease and comfort that it gets from holding on to things, and it gives a hoarder so much control. I mean, it gives, and then a lot of it grounds them, to have all their stuff there. They don't want anybody touching their stuff. And it can be in degrees. You don't start off with everything piled up to the ceiling. And sometimes collectors, there's collectors. I used to collect a lot of different stuff. I mean, and a collector, though, usually is very particular of what they collect. And, they will maybe, the what a collector gets out of collecting, it's usually in the search for a particular thing. And, if they can find something better, they're not so personally committed to a certain object. Now, it can cross a line. Collectors can cross a line and it can become hoarding. So just because people collect and they have 500 Santa Clauses, that doesn't mean that they are hoarders. They might build a whole separate room to put all their Santa Clauses in or whatever they're collecting. Do thimbles, it takes up less space. But a true hoarder will hoard anything. Boxes, newspapers, magazines, old clothes, and then new clothes. And so this is another thing that can come in there in kind of the middle stages. Sometimes hoarding can get into compulsive spending. So it has lots of different feelers out here that with hoarding. So in essence, treat it as an addiction. And first, you have to do a really good first step, figuring out what is the problem. What is the problem here? And, the hoarding and the collecting of all of the, I don't know if any of you are hoarders or if you've been into a house where people hoard things. It is, you can't even believe it. It's just overwhelming to see that. And so to get sober around that, to get sober, emotionally sober and physically sober, it's going to take some time and a lot of willingness to do it, a lot of time. And so you treat it like any other addiction. You've got to figure out what is the problem. And most of the time, like Bonnie said, it's a problem with her sponsoree. Her sponsoree's parents, but it's more of a problem for the sponsoree than it is the parents. The hoarders, they are satisfied with keeping all of their stuff. So this is where good interventions come in. After a while, severe hoarding, a lot of times they become recluse in that they will not leave their home. They will not leave their possessions. They will not get out of their house. So that kind of goes along with it. So can't stress enough to do the kind of therapy that takes you back to the childhood, to look at any trauma that has happened, any form of abuse, physical, emotional, sexual. Well, I've already said that, any form of abuse. And because if you don't do that inner child work, it's like we have a hole in the soul as addicts. We have a hole in the soul that nothing will fill up. Hoarding is a spiritual problem as well as any other addiction. So we have this hole in the soul, and hoarders literally take stuff to try to fill up that vacant building on the inside. And the only thing that can fill that up is finding a God of their understanding. And so that's the process of the 12 steps. It just, one of the things that they keep saying over and over and over, this takes time, this takes time. And families usually get fed up. They get fed up. That's why only, and it saddens me, only about 5% ever receive any help because the family makes up that they are too mentally ill to get help. There may be some mental illness in there, but it is an addiction, a freestanding problem of its own, and it's called compulsive hoarding, obsessive hoarding. So if you know of anyone or if yourself has this, and keep in mind, like any addiction, it has a starting place, it has a middle, and it has the chronic place, on the spectrum. And if you know of anyone, or if you have that, I would really encourage you to encourage your loved one to do a 4-day intensive. Also find a good therapist and ask questions. When you get a therapist, it's like, not just exactly, but you're buying a commodity. Your money is going into therapy and, to that therapist. And it's like, if you were to buy a used car, you just wouldn't walk on that lot and pick the first one. You do some research. And that's true of picking a good therapist. And for this particular compulsion, it is very important that they understand how to treat hoarding, or they will join the family. And let's just clean that out. Let's just clean that mess out. And when we get it all cleaned up, they'll feel better. Well, that's not the problem. That is a symptom of the problem. The clutter is the symptom. The core of the problem is those underlying causes and conditions that were set up in childhood. And that's true we see with any addiction. Now, you do have to have the brain chemistry. Our brains, I think of any addict works different from that of a normal brain. Once our brain gets fired and it feels good to do a certain behavior or a substance, we're gone. Because it changes the way we feel and it makes us feel better. So I hope this has helped. I want to go back to this. I was just very surprised that it started so early. 11 to 15 is what they have targeted, and up to 20. And, there's exceptions to everything. There are adults who, will hoard, but I think, if you really did much research, it probably started at an early age. Sometimes it is, it has a really good, it sounds like a good explanation. Maybe they were raised poor and didn't have much. But that's really not the core of it. It can make some contribution to hoarding, holding on to stuff just in case we have another depression. People who are raised in the Depression. My mother-in-law, of course, was raised during the Depression, where there was no food, very little money. And they had to really work hard to get anything. She lived here in Buffalo Gap, and she had enough food in her house and in a storage building that could feed all of Buffalo Gap. Now, I don't see that as hoarding. It is a form of it, but hers was more of self-preservation, the fear of not having enough food. So I'm not diagnosing her, she's dead and gone. But anyway, I think this is where a good therapist can help you sort it out. But keep in mind the type of what hoarders hoard really a lot of times have no value, zero value. Magazines, newspapers, books, old clothes. You name it. And then cardboard boxes of stuff. They don't even know what's in the cardboard boxes until you start digging into them. And then, that's the thing that they love the most, and they're not willing to give up. But they've forgotten even what they have. So I don't know if this is helpful, but if any of you, we've got some therapists on here, would really encourage any of you to share if you have any firsthand knowledge, or if you know of someone that has been a hoarder, or maybe a family member. To go back to this early client, that we had many, many, many years ago, she wound up staying with us about 6 months. And keep in mind, that was the only addiction that she had other than codependency. And what was uncovered was some abuse in childhood, but also what was uncovered was she was married to a very, and I'm not putting down churches, do not get your guard up, but she was married to a very religious man. And she knew, sometimes we know things, we just have a knowing. We just have a knowing. She knew that he had had multiple affairs on her, multiple affairs. And when she would ask him or confront him, he would deny it till hell froze over, and he would put it back on her that she was insecure, that she was crazy, that she was, and that's how what started her hoarding. She said that she'd already, it started in junior high and saving all the moms. She had every mom that she'd ever gotten. But anyway, but a lot of it had to do with knowing something and it not being validated. And so she was trying to find something to stabilize her. And once she got to hoarding, I'll tell you, she never took down a Christmas tree, a decoration, nothing. She just added more to it. So that's what I have. And so I'm going to open it up. Please ask questions, please share. And if you have a problem, I would encourage you to talk about it right here. If maybe the problem is in the beginning stages.
Chris has his hand up.
All right, Chris.
Hi, Sandy.
Hi,
hear you.
Chris.
I do have a problem. It's not with me hoarding or actually anybody in the family. Thankfully, we have a tenant in one of our rentals that is well, I guess it's our only remaining rental now. With the workaholism, we've decided to downsize a lot of our little side activities. So we're down to one rental. Anyway, she is a hoarder, and Elizabeth and I have been discussing how do we help her. We don't want to go and kick her out. She pays her rent on time. She's she's a bus driver and nearing retirement. She doesn't have a lot of career options or income options, and we have a good relationship with her. Elizabeth, here a couple months ago, she's been telling us, I want to clean up, I want to get rid of the stuff. And Elizabeth went over and said, okay, I can help you. And they set up an appointment. And they worked together for about an hour, and they took a couple of bags to the thrift. And then the next week, Elizabeth went back and they worked together for about an hour, and they put a little bit in the garbage, and Elizabeth got a whole bunch of stories about, the value of each one of the items. And so, normally in shares, I'm not asking for input, but we're at the decision phase. How do we help her? We're in a smaller town. There's not a lot of specific, there's not going to be a hoarding counselor available locally. There's not a lot of specialized counseling fields in Mountain Home, but we'd like to help her move forward. And she has the desire. She recognizes that this is a challenge, and it's a challenge not just for us, but it's a challenge for her that she wants to resolve. But so I guess any ideas?
Well, of course, what I would say, if you really want to help her come here and do a 4-day, that would be some of the best help you could give her. And, short of that, if you really want to help her, maybe take her through the steps. I mean, if you want to get that involved, have her to write out, first step. When did it start? Your memories of it, and the meaning of what, but, the best gift you could give her is, helping her come here. So because that is the problem in small towns is there's probably good therapists, but not anyone really trained in hoarding. And And it's so much more than the cleaning up. And I'm surprised that she even let Elizabeth do that much, you know. And I can imagine the stories that she has. That's part of the hoarding, is to convince people how important that particular thing is, you know. So that's what I would, you know, recommend. And, you know, talk to Cam that we could help some way. Cam will just shake her head. But anyway, but that is an idea, and that could help her, because it would be hard for you to explain to her, well, this is about your childhood, you know. That if you could explain to her that, and maybe, you know, have her listen to this, or, you know, about what hoarding really is. It is a compulsion. It's a mental obsession. It's not just keeping things for a rainy day. Yeah. So I hope that helps, Chris.
Okay,
All
thank
all
you.
right. Anyone else?
Heather S.
Heather, hello, Heather. I've been missing you. How are you? Hi, Heather.
Hi, sorry I couldn't figure out how to unmute. I've missed you too. I'm doing well, thank you.
Good to see you.
Good to see you too. Hoarding. So when I came back from my intensive, that was the first thing I really saw, I think, with different eyes, was all of the physical clutter in my house. And it just really bothered me. And I think if we didn't have a housekeeper come every week, then it would be just probably overwhelming to anyone who entered our house. And we've always had people over right after the housekeeper comes. And this poor housekeeper, she has learned to shove things to one side and put things inside of other things. And we could never find anything, but we could never find anything before we hired her either. And we just buy another thing. Like, I think we probably have 10 baby fingernail clippers in our house hiding somewhere. And the thinking about getting rid of stuff, I'll put it all in the donate box, but then the actual going to donate it is like this fear that I will have this feeling of regret later, and then not having faith that I'm going to be able to get the same thing later. And I even like took pictures to send to my sponsors on this call to say, do you think that this is just surprisingly bad? You know, and this is, I mean, this is just before the housekeeper came in. This is just what had happened within 1 week. She's like, well, you're a mom of little kids and you're busy. And that's all true, that we were very busy and not really picking up after ourselves too. But I got that book, The Hoarder in You, and I was reading it and taking the quiz, and I didn't score in the hoarder level, which is good because I did watch that TV show and that is definitely not me. But I scored in the fact that it interferes with my enjoyment in life. And like right now I'm recovering with the broken foot, and that's from tripping over stuff and falling downstairs. And I've also had stitches from stepping on things, and a dislocated toe from, you know, the same kind of thing. So anyway, I just wanted to share that. Thank you for letting me share. This has been very enlightening, and I hope that I can give stuff away.
Yeah, I do too, Heather. So good to see you and hear from you. Yeah. Yeah, and you know, one of the things, when our kids, of course, we raised quite a few children, and when they were little, when they were younger, I would, like at Christmas or birthday or something, I would just leave out a few things and box up the others and put them away. And then 6 months later, get them out, and oh, they were just so excited because they had, you know, as young kids, they would forget that they had had it 6 months before, you know. one of the things, I was raised in a very small house, and there was only 4 of us, but we spent all of our time looking for something, like looking for a pair of scissors or whatever. I am really big, and there's a place for everything and everything in its place. And I have, my grown children today, sometimes they will come to the house and will leave maybe to use a pair of scissors or something. And I'll just say, yep, you can use anything I have, just put it back where you got it. There's nothing more frustrating than to go get something that you know where you keep it and it's not there. So it takes, anyway, I know that that is a lot that comes coming from my childhood, but that's a good thing. I changed that, and I do like order in my house, and I do need to go through and probably get rid of some things, probably clothes particularly. Okay, so who's next? Katie?
I don't see her.
Okay,
I think she
Bonnie?
left us.
Bonnie. Okay, Bonnie.
Tennie, this has really been helpful. A couple of things really jumped out at me. One of the issues with this girl is her parents. The mother is also an alcoholic who had to quit drinking because of medical reasons, but's never worked a program. But when her mother's parents died, they had a home in Michigan. She has never allowed anyone to do anything to that house. And it's been a couple of decades now, and it's going to have to be torn down. So I was wondering if it, because of the trauma or whatever, is it kind of more of an attachment wound where she attaches and gives meaning to this stuff, and that's why she wants to keep it? Or, a lot of it's junk. They only have like 1 working bathroom out of 3 in the house they live at now. And it's, it's dirty, it's everything. It's squalor.
I think it can be. Now, is she the one that is the alcoholic? Are you talking
The mother is.
Okay, yeah. So she had to quit drinking, and so she substituted the hoarding with that.
No, the drinking's just stopped recently, and
Okay,
she's
okay.
probably around 80, so she's upper 70s or 80s.
I would suspect it is that attachment, to other generations, but it's just that it's pathological. It is pathological that they have to hold on to something, bring in close to make them feel better, and to give it up would be like cutting off the right arm, and that's why it takes some really good step-by-step, therapy, and get a good plan and have them on board for the plan. And like I said, I was just amazed. Only 5% ever get any help. Only 5%. So I hope what we've talked about today has been helpful, Bonnie, that you can pass on.
It has, and I will. Thank
All
you.
right, thank you. Anyone else?
Katie just came back on. There she
Okay.
is.
Kathy?
Katie.
Katie?
Hi, I'm Katie. I'm from Kentucky. Hi,
Yeah.
Tennie.
Hi, Katie. How are you? Yes,
I'm doing
there
very
you
well,
are.
thank
There
you.
are.
My phone died. Sorry, I got dropped a moment ago. I don't necessarily have any experience with hoarding, but it's really interesting one because, of course, everything you've said applies to every addiction I have. I just take out the word hoarding and I can just stick in any of my wheelhouse. And but something that is interesting is my youngest son is autistic, and he has such a strong attachment to inanimate objects, and to the point that like we can't even get rid of furniture that has like been destroyed to the point that like nobody can even go near it. He wants me to get a storage unit because he won't let us dispose of something. And for a while, it was one thing when he was younger, but now, I mean, he's older. There's a lot of stuff that we are having to make sure that we try to keep for him because those are his things. And he always wants them around him for comfort. And I recently went through a house fire and my house burned down. And so we are having to really work closely with his therapist because he is so focused on when we get back to the house, when everything's rebuilt, that his stuff will be exactly like it was in the same spots, to the point that he's really starting to fixate on it. And I know it's a piece of autism. I know it's a piece that they, for whatever reason, have an easier time attaching to things that aren't live people and that they have to work towards, understanding feelings and connections and emotions with the people that they are connecting to. But I am starting to kind of grow concerned with working him through this. I mean, obviously we have to get him through the house fire piece of it, but how we can work towards just kind of helping him accept some of the stuff we were able to get, some of them we weren't, and really helping him sort through his feelings of his attachment to these things. I mean, he is my child, so I may have created a little addict and autism could be on top of it. I don't know. But I am seeing the closer to us getting back to going back, he is fixating on it a considerable amount of times. And so I don't know if you have any thoughts, but I did really hear some things today that is helping me kind of put in perspective. I know it's a security blanket. I've known that for a long time. I just really haven't had any ways to try to sort him through it.
Mm-hmm. How old is he?
He's 16 now.
16.
Mm-hmm.
My belief, we don't take away one behavior without replacing it with another.
Right.
And I don't, I haven't worked with a lot of autism people, so I don't know what that, I'm not certainly not that educated on it, but I have been around autism people. And, my first thought is don't give him his way, but do not listen to me. Do not listen to me. That would be my first thought, and could he work through it if he, I mean, I don't know, but that's something that I would ask the therapist. Is he of working through?
Well, and I believe everything happens the way it's supposed to. I don't feel like this is an accident, that I'm on this call and that I can connect the dots, and then it's bringing it to the surface of let's put some really good support around him so we can get him through this.
Yeah. Good to see you, Kathy.
Good to see you.
All righty, and let us hear how it goes. Yeah.
I will.
All righty. Anyone else?
I don't see any hands up.
Sarah, do you have anything that can add? Hello.
Hello. Hey, Tennie.
How are you?
I'm good. I don't really have a whole lot on hoarding and clutter. I've seen it in one of my family members that I'm not biologically related to. And I have, I mean, I get it, but I don't, it's one of those things. I would say that working the steps would absolutely help. That is what I make of.
So you've never treated anyone?
I've never worked with anyone who has hoarding tendencies. I've only seen it the once, to be honest.
Yeah. So have you moved to South Texas yet?
I have not.
Okay. You still going that way?
Yes.
Good.
Yeah. My last day of work. Yep.
Yeah. All righty. Well, let us know how it goes.
I will.
It's pretty down there. All righty. Anyone else?
Suzanne has her hand up, and TJ.
Okay, Suzanne, I was wondering if you'd put your hand up.
Yeah, I decided I would. This is certainly a very good topic, and I have had some experience with it. And my experience may be totally atypical, but my mother was a very neat person when I was growing up. I never really understood why we had a maid come in every week because she was having me do the cleaning. And the house was always neat and it was always presentable. But after my mother went through menopause, it seemed that she lost her ability to keep up with things and to take care of things, or she no longer had an interest. I'm not sure what was going on. And what was really bad was she had started doing her therapy out of the home. And I remember one time my son and I were visiting, and we happened to open up the door to my old bedroom. And I don't even know how you could do this, but the room was absolutely full of paper up to the ceiling and to the door. I mean, we could not even get into the room. And I don't know how you can accumulate that much paper. And then when she and I merged households, I came to realize some things, that she was the ideal Costco or Sam's customer because she did grow up in the Depression. She had known actual hunger as a child. She had gone without for a while before she was eventually adopted by a wealthier member in the family. But for her, I came to understand that having great quantities of stuff, having cases of toilet paper and cases of paper towels, it made her feel safe, that she was not going to run out. And she wasted a lot of money after she had been living in Fort Worth for about 4 years. She finally confessed that she had 3 storage units in Dallas that she had filled up with empty Tide boxes because she was saving them for when she moved. And then she realized that she was moving her business as a therapist, it was tax deductible. She hired people to pack her up and move her, but she had been paying on these storage units for 4 years for empty Tide boxes. And I'm like, how can you waste that kind of money? So I got no words of wisdom, but that's my experience with hoarding. So
there's no, it really, you can't, there's no logic to it. It's not logical. Like for an alcoholic to drink themselves to death is not logical. For us to eat ourselves to death is not logical, or
true.
So it is a disease. It is a disorder. So thanks for sharing. And I would think she would qualify. I really do. Jackie.
TJ has her hand up too.
TJ and then Jackie. Excuse me. TJ.
Well, I already took it down. Okay. Sorry.
Okay. I wanted to comment on something that Heather had said. She said that sometimes she wanted to keep things or buy things because she wasn't sure she could replace them. And I have noticed that since I've been home from Shades, I haven't been as likely to overbuy food, to keep too many cans of green beans or whatever. But because of all the media talking about the supply chain and possible lack of turkeys or whatever it is for Thanksgiving, I feel like I'm more susceptible now to that kind of publicity and that kind of media. What do you think about that?
Oh, I think so. I think, yeah. In fact, I was sitting here thinking, maybe I better get me a turkey today.
Me too.
Now that you mentioned it, I'm going to town. And it makes you wonder what the media does. I mean, I don't know. It is crazy, but I do think that I mean, I know when the pandemic started, we were in Lubbock on a Friday. And on the way back, we heard on the news that they were limiting that toilet tissue, all of these things were being, had a run, and they were, there was a lack. So we stopped at Walmart in a town between here and Lubbock, and we filled up that car with stuff that everyone else was. So I think it's fear, motivated by fear. And I think the media plays into it. I do. I mean, and how true it is, I don't know. I do not know. But I am going to go get me a turkey for Thanksgiving.
Me too.
I am, and we'll get one for Shade too. We do
Yes,
not want
okay.
them not to have turkey, or I'll have to give them my turkey. So we'll get one. Thanks, TJ.
Thanks, Tennie.
All righty. Anyone else? All right, of course, Jackie.
Hey there, Tennie.
Good to see you.
Great topic. I always have your call on while I'm working with my associate Linda, and we talk about the topics, and the conversations we have during this is interesting in itself. But it's funny that you mentioned that 9 times out of 10 with hoarders, it's associated with a childhood trauma of some sort or another. And when I reflected back, it's interesting enough, this happened to be the conversation I knew coming in today, but my daughter and I have she calls me on her morning on her ride into work every morning before I start my day. And she was talking about this interesting book. She's a speech pathologist and all her children are autistic that she works with. And she said, I just finished this book, Mom, and it's amazing how much childhood traumas are impacting all of my students. And so much of it could be prevented. And it's just amazing to me what this book was educating me on. And I thought that was very interesting, that was part of the topic today as well with hoarding, is how the childhood traumas are impacting everyone in every addiction. Honestly, I think you can root every addiction I have to something that happened in my childhood, my perfectionism, my need to please, my caregiving, my whatever, all of it is due to my childhood. So I have a brother who is an actual hoarder. As a matter of fact, so much so that I applied him for the hoarder show. My other brothers who try to fix, manage, and control have emptied out his house 3 or 4 different times, and every time it gets filled back up. He had a hairless rat that lived with him for a while. My other brother put it in a cage and fed it and treated it like a pet. It's just crazy sickness in my family. But when I think back at my brother and how bad it was, in 89, I'd had a house fire. And we took all the damaged things out of the house to replace with new things when we rebuilt it, because it was black and soot damaged. And what's funny is my brother came over through that. And to this day, he still has some of those items. And they're still black soot filled fixtures just sitting on a table or whatever. But it's very sad to me. And I try not to go over there because I get triggered a little bit because I want to fix, manage, and control. And I know I can't fix them. But it's really interesting to me because his dad, we have separate dads. We have the same mom, but his dad died while he was very young. And I think that triggered something in him, that he's been a troubled teen, a troubled child, a troubled kid his whole life. And he's always clung to possessions. And then I fast forward to myself and I look at me in the height of my issues and my diseases. And I think about how I had to have a big house and I had to fill it all up with stuff. And I was affected by that as well. Not to the level that my brother was, of course. My dad, was my everything. But the blessing is that I could see it. And today I was able to, just a year ago, November, as a matter of fact, a year ago this month, November 15th, I moved out of that home. And I put a for sale sign and sewed every single thing in it. And you want to talk about feeling like a hoarder. I felt like I was a hoarder. I had so much garbage in that house. I filled up an entire dumpster before I had an estate sale. And I sewed every single piece of china that I hadn't touched for years or touched once a year. I sold things that I was holding on to in case one day I might need them. Turns out a year later, I haven't missed one single item out of that house, not one single thing. And I didn't need any of it. I think I was filling the hole in my soul. I think I was filling it with things. And instead of filling it from within, I was looking at others with my codependency. But then I was also looking at things to fill that hole in the soul. And it turns out that until I did this really good work, working my program there at Shades and doing all the work thereafter, that I realized that that's just what it was. It was just stuff filling a hole in my soul that I now today can honestly say no longer need those things to feel happy and joyous and free. So with that, I'll pass.
Thanks, Jackie. I've loved watching the process because I got to see that beautiful home, and you're rare. There's a lot of people that wouldn't do that. And I'm just, sat back and watched you and Mike, and I'm just thrilled that you could do that. And then right after that, you just traveled. You traveled and traveled and traveled, and you travel light. So that's, you're a great example for all of us, really. Thanks for sharing. All
I'm
right.
rubbing that in.
Okay. So my friend T was on, and I noticed that she's off. But
She went to get her booster shot. She's off.
oh, okay. All righty. Well, you'll have a good 2 weeks. We're doing an intensive next week, and so we'll be here, but we will be here the following Wednesday, and hope all of you will be. And like Bonnie, if you have a topic, anything you'd like for us to talk about, please let us know, because I learned from this. I learned quite a bit about hoarding. So let us know, and y'all have a good 2 weeks, and we'll be back 2 weeks from today. All righty. Bye-bye. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you, Tennie.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Bye-bye.
Penny. Thanks, Cam.
Bye-bye.
Bye, guys.
Bye-bye.